20 years ago, we put in place a climate strategy for the corporation. So it's something that we realize when you're looking at system change takes time. And it's also something that we believe it requires collaboration. It requires bringing sometimes unlikely partners together to collaborate, but it requires an investment in the long term and an investment in outcomes that we don't necessarily know how they're going to turn out. What we do know is that climate change is one of the serious global challenges and that we want to be part of a solution. We live in a resource-intensive based economy. We operate as a provider of energy, a provider of oil, and so we want to be part of that solution. Well, I would say there's a number of areas where we've been investing that I almost think of as building blocks. One of the significant investments that we made in the last 3 or 4 years was an investment in something called the Energy Futures Lab, where the Natural Step led this lab, bringing together a diverse group of people from energy companies, from government, from ENGOs, from renewable energy providers, and provide solutions for what Alberta's energy future needs to look like in a transition to a low-carbon economy. With a new government elected provincially and a new federal government elected in 2015 and the Paris climate talks happening, there was lots of external factors that were leading us to this is a moment when the window is open and we could work together on what good climate policy might look like. So it was another example of where we worked hard to look at common interests, to build trusting relationships, and to take the necessary time to work on solutions. And we were able to agree on strong climate policy for Alberta in 2015. There's a number of challenges. One of them is that it takes time. So these are time-intensive types of conversations. You can't bring a number of diverse stakeholders to a table and have a one-day meeting and expect to come up with systems-based solutions. So there has to be an investment of time. It's building trusting relationships. It requires trust, it requires listening, it requires problem solving, and that needs to come from a basis of trust. It's also one other challenge I'll mention, and that's that the more diverse interests that there are, the more difficult it is. And so you're stuck with this tension of, if the group is too small, you don't have enough critical mass for buy-in of the solution. If the group is too big, you can't make progress. And so there's a real tension there on working through actually getting down to solutions and problem solving. We ended up agreeing on a climate policy where we have a carbon price in Alberta, we have an emissions limit for our sector, for our resource basin. We have a policy that is increasing the amount of renewable energy in our power grid. And so those are some of the elements of that policy that we were able to agree on, and that implementation is still ongoing, and the challenges of working through that and maintaining a competitive and healthy economy all are part of that. But that's work that we're proud of. First of all, we look at leadership in policy advocacy and leadership in policy. If we're going to have a rational conversation about dealing with climate change, global climate change, we need to do so from a position of leadership in policy. 2, we think we need to have leading performance, and that requires an investment in technology and innovation, and we're collaborating on technology and innovation both for environmental performance and in extraction. And the third one is leadership in ambition, and that's why we set goals. So at Suncor we have a goal to reduce our the intensity of our carbon footprint by 30% by 2030. And so each of those, I think, are important to leadership in making a difference in that transition to a low carbon economy.